My breath hung in the cool, early morning air, mist rising slowly from the damp earth like secrets longing to escape. Hillcrest Town had always felt like a place caught between the clutches of reality and a hazy dream, its quaint streets lined with perfect little houses that seemed to smile at passersby. Yet today, that picturesque facade was merely a mask concealing the quiet storm brewing inside me. As I stood in front of the old coffee shop, the worn wooden sign swinging slightly in the gentle breeze, I longed for my usual caffeine fix to speed up my pulse. But the only thing surging through my veins was a cocktail of adrenaline and dread. I spotted her inside, her back turned towards me, a halo of golden hair cascading down her shoulders, perfectly framing her delicate figure in that immaculately tailored coat. It was the kind of outfit that seemed to whisper, I am in control, while I felt more like a storm cloud waiting to burst. The girl I had once called my best friend now sat just a few feet away, completely unaware that I was here waiting for the right moment to confront her. I could almost hear the laughter we used to share, the late night talks fueled by dreams and hopes, but that felt like lifetimes ago. The betrayal whispered back, a dagger puncturing the sweet memories. With each passing second, the shadows of doubt crept in. Was I really ready for this? Every inch of me wanted to turn and run, yet I remained rooted to the spot. Engaging with her felt like edging closer to the edge of a cliff. One wrong move could send everything tumbling down. But controlling the narrative was no longer an option. I had to face her, to hear her excuses, her lies wrapped in ribbons of friendship. I inhaled deeply, trying to steady my shaking hands, reminding myself of the anger that gave me strength. As I approached the door, the bell chimed softly, and the aroma of coffee blended with a hint of vanilla wafted towards me. The inside, though cozy with mismatched chairs and wooden tables, felt like a trap, the kind that could hold every secret we once shared. I couldn't just slip in and blend into the background. I needed her attention, I needed her to see me. Hey, I said, the words slipping out before I even reached the table. She turned, her eyes widening momentarily before settling into an expression that could only be described as surprise mixed with unease. Mia, wow, it has been a while. Yes, it has, I replied, forcing a casual tone, though my heart raced. Can I join you? She hesitated, and in that moment I could see the gears turning behind those bright eyes. Perhaps she was weighing the implications of my presence. Of course, she said, her smile strained and careful. The silence that followed as I slid into the seat across from her was thick and uncomfortable, as if the air had thickened to an almost suffocating degree. I could see her fidgeting with the edge of her sleeve, a telltale sign of her discomfort, and instinctively I felt a familiar surge of power. How had it come to this? I forced back a laugh that threatened to escape, realizing that she felt it too, the tension crackling like electricity in a summer storm. How have you been? She asked, her voice almost too bright, an artificial cheeriness that clashed with the tension. Fine, I replied curtly, my eyes narrowing as I studied her, searching for signs of guilt. I see you're doing well, she leaned back slightly. I guess I have to be life right. I would not allow her to steer the conversation away from what mattered most. It's strange seeing you here, especially after everything, I blurted. The sting of my words cut through the air, rendering our shared surroundings irrelevant. Her expression faltered just for a moment, but it was enough for me to seize the opening. Does it not bother you? What do you mean? She asked, her voice dropping a notch, a reflex, perhaps a defensive move. Come on, this town is small and we both know what everyone's been saying. You could have, I hesitated, the weight of the truth pressing against my tongue. You could have at least owned up to it. The moment hung between us, pregnant with unspoken truths, and I could see the shift as her confidence crumbled, replaced by a flicker of guilt. I was just trying to make things better, she protested weakly. Better for who? I shot back, the bitterness leaking into my voice like a poison. You walked away from me when I needed you most, and for what? Some fleeting moment of happiness? Her lips twitched, a shadow of a smile that crumbled under the weight of my accusation. I thought. I thought you would understand. It was complicated. You don't know what was happening. I thought I did. I thought we were supposed to be there for each other, I said, my tone steady despite the turmoil within. A flicker of anger sparked in her eyes, but she reined it in, masking it beneath a veil of calm. Things change, Mia. People sometimes make choices that seem right at the moment. It doesn't mean I don't care about you. Caring only goes so far, I retorted, my heart racing. I leaned in, lowering my voice to a level that was conspicuous in our small bubble. Do you realize how many times I've heard your name whispered in the streets? Do you even care what people think? She opened her mouth, but no words came out. I could almost see her thoughts racing behind her eyes, weighing her response. This isn't fair. You don't even know the full story, she said finally, her voice trembling slightly, revealing the cracks in her bravado. And you don't know what I've gone through because of your choices, I replied coldly. Your happiness didn't just come at a price for you, it shattered mine. The coffee shop buzzed with the sound of grinding beans and clinking cups, but all I focused on was the pulse of truth running like a lightning strike between us. You could have told me, you could have come to me when things started to change, I pressed on with an intensity that surged through my body. I thought it would be easier if you didn't know. She leaned forward, desperation rising in her voice. I didn't want to hurt you, I was trying to shield you from my mess. But it was your mess that dragged me down, I shot back, fury tightening my throat. You don't get to play the victim here, not after everything you've done. I could see that she was struggling to contain her emotions, her hands trembled slightly above the table, yet there was that glimmer of hurt lurking in her eyes. Mia, I never meant to betray you. I thought you would find happiness on your own terms. With a scoff, I shook my head, feeling a storm of emotions swirling inside me, a mix of rage and despair. You don't know anything about me anymore. Maybe not, she admitted quietly, and the softness of her tone caught me off guard. But I still care. I never wanted to hurt you. Care, is that what you call dancing with my enemy right behind my back while I was left in the dark? For a moment, silence enveloped us again as her eyes bore into mine, searching for a way through the tangled emotions. You think it was easy for me? It was awful, Mia. It destroyed me too. Then why did you do it? I challenged, the words pouring from my lips with a bitterness I couldn't contain. Why did you choose betrayal over honesty? The tension in the air thickened, and the weight of unquenched emotions hung heavily around us. In the coffee shop, time felt suspended and the world beyond blurred into insignificance as we stood at the precipice of a chasm that had opened up between us. Because I was afraid, okay? Her voice cracked, a rare moment of vulnerability breaking through her defenses. I didn't know how to face you after everything. I wanted to be happy again, and I thought it would be easier if I just moved on. My heart sank into the pit of my stomach. I watched her, caught between the urge to rage against her decisions and the flicker of empathy rising within me. Easier for you or easier for us, there's a difference. I thought you would have moved on too, she whispered. I thought maybe you would be grateful that I found a way out. My stomach churned. I was straddling the line between pain and anger, helplessly caught in her eyes, a mixture of regret and desolation reflected back at me. Grateful? You have no idea what I've been through since you left. You cut me out like I was nothing. Please, let's not do this. I don't want to fight. I just want to make things right, she pleaded, her voice breaking like glass. I closed my eyes momentarily, struggling to need the emotions coursing through me. And how do you propose to do that? Pretend like everything is fine, like we can just go back to being friends? Mia, no one is asking for that, she said, brimming with frustration now. I just want you to know that I am sorry. Well, sorry doesn't fix what's broken, I replied, the bitterness slicing through my words. Your apology feels empty. Words fall flat when actions have already spoken louder. The silence returned, heavier this time, thickening the air around us. I sat in that coffee shop, staring at the girl I once adored, feeling the remnants of our lost friendship crumble like ash between us. She had shattered my world without a second thought, and now she wanted forgiveness, but it was too soon. The storm within me roared, but the scent of fresh coffee mingling with the bittersweet reminders of the life we once had tugged at me, forcing a sense of clarity. Maybe it is time for both of us to face the truth, I said finally, my voice steadier, though it still trembled with unspent emotion. What truth? She asked cautiously, her brow furrowing. That there is no going back, not for us. Her eyes widened at my words, and I could see the dawning realization reflected clearly within them. You don't mean that, do you? She whispered, her voice breaking again, desperation coloring every syllable. I think I do, I said, and inside my heart cracked at the realization I was confessing, the flood of emotions almost overwhelming. You made your choices, and I have to make mine. I stood up abruptly, my chair scraping against the wooden floor, making heads turn in the coffee shop, the sound sharp and jarring against the weight of our conversation. I didn't want to hear any more excuses. I didn't want to listen to her sorrow. I was done being the victim. With one last look locked in her gaze, the bittersweet memories of our friendship washed over me, reminding me that her world was no longer mine. The fresh air hit me like a slap as I stepped outside, lungs filling with the briskness of the new day. I sensed the weight of her sorrow still clinging to my heart, but there was also a burgeoning strength starting to unfurl within me. I had survived this. The fire she ignited was still burning, and though I knew this confrontation marked the beginning of a long and winding road, I felt prepared to tread that path, one step at a time, armed with newfound resolve. The sun hung low in the sky, casting long shadows over the cracked pavement of Hillcrest Town. The air was thick with the scent of impending rain, a metallic tang that clung to my nostrils as I stepped outside. I took a moment, letting the cool breeze tousle my hair as I inhaled deeply, steadying my racing heart. Today was the day I would set my plan in motion. Walking down the familiar street, I felt the weight of my past on my shoulders like a heavy backpack filled with stones. My pulse quickened with every step toward the cafe where I knew they would be. I had watched them from a distance, those who had wronged me. I could see them through the large, clear windows, sitting at a corner table laughing, their faces lit up with the glow of self-satisfaction. The betrayal had cut deep, like a knife slashing through the fabric of my life. Now it was my turn to turn the tables and let them feel just a fraction of the pain they had inflicted on me. As I pushed open the door, a small bell jingled overhead, a sound that became a ghost echoing in my mind as I stepped into the warmth of the cafe. The rich aroma of roasted coffee wrapped around me, intertwining with the scent of freshly baked pastries. I could see the steam rising from ceramic mugs, hear the clatter of forks against plates, and feel the hum of conversation buzzing around me. Joyful laughter filled the air, the kind that had always made me feel like an outsider in my own town. But not today. I spotted them easily, seated in that little corner, their laughter ringing like a cruel melody. My breath caught in my throat as I remembered the promises made and broken. I could still see the betrayal in sharp images, the looks exchanged, the words that sliced through my heart, the dismissal of my worth in their eyes. I had been naive to trust them, but I had a plan now, a methodical approach to weaving the threads of their guilt, knotting them tighter and tighter until they could no longer breathe. Drawing in a deep breath, I steeled myself and walked toward their table, my heart thrumming like a wild drum. The shadow of uncertainty flickered in the recesses of my mind, but I pushed it away. I opened my mouth to speak, the words I had rehearsed countless times finally spilling forth. Mind if I join you? They paused, surprised to see me there. Their expressions flickered through a series of emotions: curiosity, irritation, and then a masking of indifference. It was the last one that stung the most. Sure, if you want to, one of them replied, the feigned kindness dripping from her voice. I slid into the chair opposite them, feeling the hard edges of the seat beneath me grounding me in the moment. Well, looks like you guys have been having a good time, I said, my voice light and casual as though I hadn't spent countless hours brewing resentment. I've seen you around town, but I guess I've never run into you here. Yeah, we hang out here a lot, another replied, playing with his coffee cup as if it were a toy. It's a nice spot, good coffee. Right, I smiled, but inside my gut churned. A million different ways to exact my revenge swirled within me like a storm, but I had to tread carefully. So what's the latest with you guys? I've heard some interesting things. They exchanged glances and the air grew thick with tension. I knew I had them on edge, but pretending to be interested while maintaining my facade of casualness was crucial. You seem different, Mia, one of them said, a hint of condescension slipping into his tone. A little more distant than I remember. Just been focusing on myself, you know? I shrugged, glancing down at my fingers, tapping ever so slightly against the table side, and decided that I had to steer the conversation into dangerous waters. I've been thinking about all the friendships I prioritized and how some people, well, they just don't deserve the effort. Their eyes widened with realization, an unspoken question hanging in the air. The tension between us felt electric, crackling with unvoiced fear. The guilt was creeping up on them, and I could almost taste their unease, a bitter layer of regret that marred my own memories. And who would that be? One of them asked, feigning nonchalance, but I could hear the tremor in her voice. People who throw around trust like it's candy, I said, my voice dropping to a whisper, almost conspiratorial. Those who take advantage without a second glance. You know, the type who enjoy the show while others play the game. That kind of thing really puts you off, doesn't it? The silence settled like fog, thick and suffocating. I leaned back, feigning calmness while my heart drummed an anxious tattoo in my chest. I could see the gears clicking in their minds, the hints of nervousness that flickered behind their eyes. I gave them a moment. Moments were essential now, alchemizing anger into anticipation. Honestly, I didn't think you'd be the type to hold grudges, the indifferent one replied, her facade cracking just a touch. You always seem so forgiving. Forgiving? I laughed softly, the sound touching on something unfamiliar and dangerous. It's not really about that, it's about recognizing who has your back and who simply plays the role. Some masks are easier to see through than others. Can you guess which ones yours are? Look, Mia, we've all moved on since, one of them started, but I wasn't ready to let the conversation slip away from the edge I had carefully crafted. Moved on. I echoed, leaning forward, drawing them into my orbit. You think it's that simple? You think I can just forget how you laughed when I was at my lowest? When I needed support, you turned your back and decided I was too weak to bother with, that I wasn't worth the time. I let the accusation hang, letting my words wrap around them like a constricting vine. Their faces shifted, guilt playing upon their features, but they buried it quickly under layers of bravado. You really should just let it go. Life is too short for this, one muttered, trying to mask the sincerity in her voice with annoyance. Oh, I intend to let it go, I replied, my eyes narrowing. In fact, I have a plan, a very unique way of moving on. What does that even mean? One asked, leaning back slightly, defensive posturing creeping into their body language. I smiled, twisted at the edges, a specter of satisfaction ghosting through my heart. Let's just say I have a way of making sure you understand the ramifications of your actions. You see, I believe in lessons. Life hands them out, and I think it is about time you received yours. When you dismiss someone, you don't realize they still hold power. Just because the curtains have fallen does not mean the play is over, my friends. A nervous chuckle escaped one of them, but I could see the anxiety lingering just beneath the surface. I leaned in closer, lowering my voice so only they could hear. You will find that your actions have consequences, and I have every intention of making sure you do. Come on, Mia, this is kind of ridiculous, another said, shaking their head as though trying to dismiss my words. We were all young and foolish. You can't possibly be serious about this. Every joke has a punchline, I replied, not letting them ring my bell of forgiveness. And I promise you my punchline will be unforgettable. The tension hung there, fertile with unspoken words. I could see the realization dawning on them, the threads of regret weaving tighter around their throats. I felt a twisted satisfaction blooming in my chest, seeing their confidence crumble, their laughter turning to nervous glances. Time seemed to stretch, every second felt like an eternity as I reveled in the moment. I took a sip of my coffee, and the warmth coursed through me like liquid courage, refreshing and rich against the bitterness I felt inside. I was not just sitting there, I was standing on the precipice of a great unraveling, my emotions swirling like a tempestuous storm above the quiet earth, waiting to unleash their torrent. Look, we can just move forward, right? One of them said, desperation creeping into her voice, but I could see the cracks forming in their resolve. We're adults now, we should act like it. Ah, but sometimes being an adult means taking accountability, I countered, my voice laced with steel, knowing this was only the beginning. Sometimes it means that you have to face the ghosts of your past. There's nothing to face, one of them insisted stubbornly, but I could see the fear creeping into her eyes. What do you mean by that? Just know that I have every intention of revisiting the past, and it will be quite the educational journey for you, I assure you. I stood, the chair scraping loudly against the wooden floor as I pushed it away. The cafe around us seemed to dim, the laughter fading into an echo as I turned on my heel and took a few steps back toward the door. Enjoy your coffee, I called over my shoulder, not looking back. I'll see you soon. As the door swung shut behind me, I felt the rush of sweet satisfaction that I had been craving. I could imagine their faces wearing confusion and disbelief. My heart raced with exhilaration, anticipation coiling in my stomach like a serpent ready to strike. This was just the beginning, and each step I took on that worn pavement was a step deeper into a well of revenge that would finally cleanse the bitterness I had carried for far too long. As I walked away, the rain began to fall, soft at first, tapping against the pavement in gentle rhythm. I lifted my face to the sky, letting the cool droplets dance across my cheeks, reawakening every sense as the world spun into action around me. I was ready. Ready for the next stage, ready for the revenge I had long planned and meticulously crafted. As the storm brewed within me, as the cold rain pelted down, it became a thin veil blurring the world around me. The gray clouds hung low in the hillcrest sky like a heavy curtain drawn tight, blocking out any hint of brightness. I stood in front of the small brick building that housed the Quill and Ink, the local bookstore. The familiar creaking of the door as I stepped in was like a siren call to my mind, pulling me back to the days when I used to lose myself in the scent of aged paper and ink. But today, the smell carried a different weight. It was infused with my intent, my purpose. Mia, the clerk called cheerfully from behind the counter, his voice cheerful yet distant, as if it belonged to a different time. I managed a half smile, but it felt stiff, as if the muscles in my face were rebelling against the emotions brewing inside me. Looking for something special today? Not exactly, I replied, my voice slightly wavering. The words felt foreign on my tongue, laced with the tension that had twisted my insides for weeks now. I was searching for ammunition for the plan that had begun unfolding in my mind like a shadow creeping closer by the day. Just browsing, he nodded, oblivious to the storm brewing within. I sauntered deeper into the narrow aisles, letting the walls of books close around me, a fortress of leather-bound spines and the whispers of countless stories. With each step, my fingers brushed against the surfaces, feeling the textures that had once felt like home. Words can be weapons, I thought, recalling the twisted nature of revenge that had lodged itself in my heart. My heart raced as I approached the back, where the darker, more obscure titles waited. This was where I would find it, the very thing that would twist the knife deeper into the person I had come to despise more than anything. I could almost hear the echoes of their laughter, the scornful remarks that had turned my once vibrant world into a monochrome canvas filled with resentment. Glancing around, I pulled a dusty volume from the shelf, its cover worn and faded. How fitting, I thought, smirking to myself. The title was beautiful, but the content held secrets just as I did. Mia, you okay? The clerk appeared by my side, concern knitting his brow. He must have heard the rustling of pages or sensed the tension that clung to me like the dampness of the rain outside. You look a bit tense, just lost in thought, I replied, trying to sound casual. I wasn't ready to share the storm that raged inside. You know how it gets. Yeah, I get it. His nod was sympathetic. If you're looking to escape, I recommend this one. He gestured to a brightly colored cover that caught my eye. I barely even glanced at it, my thoughts too consumed with plotting. It's a great read. Thanks, I managed, but my mind was already drifting back to the plan. The day had finally come where I could initiate the first part of my revenge, a delicate yet deliberate launching pad from which everything else would explode. I clutched the book tighter in my hand, feeling its weight not just in my grasp but on my conscience as well. I need to go, I finally said, the words almost surprising me. The clerk blinked, perhaps sensing my urgency. See you around? Sure thing, he smiled, though a hint of caution lingered in his eyes. I forced myself out of the store, the door creaking ominously as if warning me of the path I'd chosen. The rain continued to tumble from the gray heavens, but I felt a fierce resolve boiling beneath the surface of my composure. I had a plan, and plans required precision. When I reached my car, I held my breath for a second as I reached for the keys. The rain drummed against the windshield almost rhythmically, its sound filtering through my thoughts like a news ticker scrolling with updates on what was to come. Starting the engine, I felt the vibrations echoing through me, each rumble igniting a spark. With one last look at the bookstore, I drove away from the safety it represented, my mind steering me toward darker waters. The destination loomed ahead, a familiar house that brought back memories best left in the past. Stood there like an ancient fortress, its walls bearing the scars of previous battles just like mine. It was the home I had once shared with the person who had stolen everything from me, leaving ruin in their wake. Staring at it, I recalled laughter that had filled the air, but that was all faded now, reduced to distant echoes of betrayal. I could almost hear those derisive giggles resonating in the corners, taunting me, challenging my resolve. Keep it together, I whispered under my breath as I parked. My palms were clammy on the steering wheel, and I took a deep breath, inhaling the weight of the coming confrontation. The rain continued to batter down, almost drowning out my thoughts as I climbed out and made my way towards the door. Each step felt like it took an eternity, my heart beating wildly as if keeping pace with the tempest. As I reached the porch, the familiar porch swing creaked, a melancholic sound that accompanied my memories. I remembered nights spent swaying underneath the stars, the air thick with shared dreams and childish promises. But those dreams crumbled like sandcastles, washed away by the tide of betrayal. I knocked firmly, my knuckles almost stinging from the contact. The sound shattered the stillness that surrounded me, a sharp jolt that sent my heart racing. Moments later, the door swung open, and for a fleeting second, I hesitated. The face that greeted me was one I had longed to forget and yet couldn't erase from my mind, a face that was once familiar and yet now felt like a mask worn by a stranger. Mia, their voice wavered, almost incredulous. There was surprise and a flicker of dread shifting across their features, a momentary lapse of composure that reminded me how my presence could still evoke memories. "What are you doing here? I came to talk," I said, my tone steady, almost rehearsed. In my mind, I had played this moment over and over, preparing for every possible scenario, yet the reality was a jagged pill to swallow. "Talk?" They looked skeptical, the disbelief painted across their face as if I had just claimed I was a deity descending from the heavens. "About what?" I took a moment to collect myself, the rain weaving a dismal backdrop to our interaction. "About everything," I pressed, forcing myself to keep their gaze. I imagined the words flowing out like thin ribbons of silk, each one laced with venom, drawing them in before tightening like a noose. "I think it's time we discussed the past, do you?" There was hesitation, and I could see them weighing their options. "Mia, maybe this isn't a good idea," they finally replied, their voice wavering as they stepped back from the threshold, but I didn't budge. I had come this far, and I was not about to let them retreat. "Just hear me out, please," I implored, my voice tinged with urgency, desperation creeping into my tone as I invoked the memories shared, the bond, however fragile, still tethering us. "You owe me this much." With a reluctant sigh, they stepped aside, my cue to enter. The air inside felt stale, stifling, the remnants of our shared history lingering like ghosts. I crossed the threshold, but the warmth of the house felt cold to my touch, hollow echoes of happier times reverberating against the walls. It was a physical representation of everything that had come undone. "Sit down," they said, motioning toward the living room. I obeyed, sinking into the familiar couch, feeling the texture of the fabric beneath me. It all felt so surreal, as if I were walking through a dream that I had dreamed too many times before, only clutching the edges tighter, desperate for some semblance of control. "What's this all about? Do you even have to ask?" I countered, letting frustration seep into my voice. I needed them to hear me, to listen. "You were supposed to be my partner, my confidant. You were the one person I trusted. Everything changed when you decided to betray that trust." Their gaze fell to the floor, a mixture of guilt and defensiveness swirling around us like an unwelcome fog. "It was complicated, Mia." "Complicated?" I scoffed, disbelief flooding my veins. "What could possibly justify what you did? You crossed a line and you know it." I leaned forward, my emotions surfacing, flooding me with a mix of anger and sorrow. "I was there for you through everything. When things got tough, I stood by you. How could you throw all that away?" "Because I thought I could find happiness," they replied, their voice barely a whisper. "I thought it would be different." "Different? You decimated everything we built. You didn't just choose someone else, you tore my heart out with your bare hands." The anger bubbled up within me like molten lava, ready to overflow, but I pushed it back down, forcing myself to breathe. "And now you want to play the victim?" "It's not about that," they shot back, a flicker of defiance lighting their eyes. "I never wanted to hurt you. I'm sorry things turned out the way they did, but what do you want me to say?" "I want the truth," I pressed, leaning closer, making the air between us heavy with unsaid words. "I want to know how you felt when you made the decision to walk away from our life. What went through your mind?" Silence fell, crackling with tension. I could see their fingers trembling slightly as they braced themselves against the armrest. "I thought it was for the best," they finally muttered, the confession spilling forth like a dam breaking. "I convinced myself you deserved better than what I could offer. You were always dreaming, Mia. I felt like I was holding you back." I wanted to scream, to burst forth with all the fury pent up inside, but instead I chuckled, a bitter sound slipping past my lips. "So instead of talking to me about it, you decided to destroy everything? You think I wouldn't understand? You think I wouldn't have supported you? It was complicated." They cried out, finally meeting my gaze with a fiery determination. "I thought I was sparing you more pain. Spare me the theatrics." I interrupted, my tone icy now. The moment had shifted, and I could feel the power dynamic shifting into my favor, the pieces clicking into place. "This is more than just about your feelings. This is about the choices you made, the lives you ruined. You chose your own selfish desire over everything we worked for, and that can't go unpunished." "What are you saying?" They recoiled, a hint of fear flashing in their eyes, and for that split second, I reveled in it, relishing the impact of my words. "You will pay for this," I declared, leaning back, allowing the weight of my final sentence to hang in the air like thick smoke choking them. "You underestimated me, and now it's time for me to show you exactly what I am capable of. The game has changed, and you are no longer in control." For a moment, their composure slipped again, and I could see the realization dawning on them, the panic threading through their features. "Mia, please," but it was too late. The thrill skittered through me like electricity, and I could no longer suppress the satisfaction that surged forth. A plan had been set in motion, and now there was no turning back. The pieces were set to fall, and I would wield the pen that crafted this revenge story with bold, deliberate strokes. Their breath quickened as dread filled the room with an almost palpable tension. "You're serious, aren't you?" I did not answer. I simply stared, the weight of my gaze gathering a storm of its own. In that moment, I knew I had re-entered a world where words were indeed weapons, deadly, penetrating, irrevocable. My heart raced, not just with anger, but with a sense of purpose that had long been buried under the rubble of betrayal. "It's only just begun," I thought, a dark smile flickering at the corners of my lips. With that, I stood, feeling the energy shift, knowing this was merely a beginning, the prologue to the chaos I would unleash. "Let's see how you handle this chapter, shall we?" I whispered to myself, stepping towards the door like a hunter returning from a successful kill. The walls of the dimly lit bar were closing in on me, the weight of my purpose thick in the air. It was not just any bar, it was the one Kai and I had come to so many times before. The scent of aged wood and spilled ale wrapped around me like a clingy ghost, whispering memories of carefree laughter and stolen glances across the table. But now it was a reminder of everything I had lost, every betrayal that had sliced through my heart like a jagged knife. Today I was going to confront him, the one responsible for my pain. I spotted him at the far end of the bar, his back turned to me, the casual ease in his posture making my pulse quicken with rage and anticipation. The flickering neon sign above him illuminated his outline, casting a halo of light around a figure who had once made me feel like I was floating, but now felt like a heavy weight pinned me down. All the moments we had shared flashed before my eyes, his laughter, his warmth, his promises. I had buried those memories deep, only to unearth them now raw and jagged like shards of glass. My hands trembled slightly as I moved toward him, the steady rhythm of my heart pounding in my ears, urging me on. Each step felt monumental, the weight of my determination pushing me forward. I had rehearsed this moment 1,000 times in my head, but nothing could prepare me for the ache of his presence. As I approached, I could hear the low murmurs of nearby patrons mingling with the clinking of glasses, an orchestra of ordinary life continuing on while I floated on a different, darker plane. "Hey," I said, my voice steadier than I felt as I reached his side. He turned, surprise flickering in his eyes before it settled into a cautious curiosity. "Mia, what are you doing here?" There it was, that dismissive tone, the one that had always made me feel small and inconsequential. "I thought I should come and see for myself," I replied, forcing a smile that felt more like a grimace. "You know, I hear a lot about you." "Oh, what have you heard?" He took a sip from his drink, confidence emanating from him like the scent of smoke. I had always hated how easy it was for him to mask his emotions, to slip into that cool exterior while my insides twisted in knots. "You've been busy." I leaned closer, lowering my voice enough to keep the conversation between us, though the bar itself seemed to swell with listeners. "Giving people what they need, right?" A shadow passed over his features, and for a brief moment I saw a flicker of regret. "Mia, you don't understand. I had my reasons." "Reasons? Is that what we are calling betrayal now?" My words felt sharp, slicing through the air, aimed directly at him. "I thought we had something special." I inhaled sharply, feigning bravado, while the bitter taste of betrayal coated my throat, his eyebrows knitted together in confusion, his patronizing smirk faltering. "It wasn't like that, you don't know the whole story." I let out a laugh, more hollow than I intended, the sound echoing between us like a distant chime. "Spare me, you were always good at spinning tales, making excuses. You were never good enough for honesty." "You think it's that simple?" He shot back, every word coated in frustration. "People get hurt in this line of work, you know that better than anyone. So this is work now? You sold us out like we were nothing, just a business transaction?" My fists clenched at my sides. I felt the heat of anger rising in my chest, fueled by the memories that dug deep and wouldn't let go. "I was your partner, Kai, your friend, you just threw it all away." The word friend slipped from my lips like venom. I had seen the way he playfully touched my arm or the way his laughter brightened a dreary night, it had felt like more. But in this moment, it was a shield I would wield against him, a weapon to poke at the wound he left inside me. "You don't know how hard it was for me," he said, sincerity seeping into his tone as he leaned closer. I could see the tension in his jaw and the warmth in his eyes, but it didn't matter. "I did what I had to." "What you had to?" I echoed incredulously, my voice rising. "You mean you did what was easiest for you while dragging everyone else through the mud?" The bar faded into the background, patrons lost to my vision, their laughter and chatter dimming to an unsettling hum. My world narrowed as the rage amplified, a current threatening to sweep me away. "I was looking out for my future, my survival," he snapped, and in that moment we were no longer two friends caught in the wreckage of betrayal. We were adversaries locked in a deadly dance, each step more calculated than the last. "You think that makes it all right?" I challenged, leaning in so we were close enough that I could see the pulse in his neck. "You chose betrayal over loyalty, you drained the trust we had, and for what? A quick payoff? You don't know anything about it," he roared, slamming his glass down on the bar with a resonating thud that drew a few concerned glances from nearby tables. "This isn't just some petty game. There are lives at stake, my life." His voice dripped with a desperation I had never heard before, and for an instant, a hint of sympathy tugged at my heart, but I quickly pushed it aside. "You keep playing the victim, don't you?" I shot back, smirking as his expression twisted in disapproval. "I am not the villain in this story." "So you're perfect, huh?" he countered, frustration spilling over. "You've never done anything wrong. I never betrayed anyone." My voice cracked with the weight of truth, and I could feel the eyes of the room shift toward us, curious but unwilling to intervene. "I trusted you and you let me down, you let everyone down." The silence that followed was heavy, a palpable tension that crackled in the air between us, swirling like the dregs of his drink. He ran a hand through his hair, a habit I had once found charming when he was on my side, but now it felt grating. "You need to let it go," he finally said, and the words hit me like a slap. "You won't get anywhere holding on to this." "Let it go?" I whispered, incredulous as I fought to keep my emotions in check, the storm within me threatening to burst forth. "Let it go and forget what you did? Is that what you want?" "No, Mia, that's not what I mean." He softened suddenly, the lines of intensity around his mouth unwinding. "You need to move on, you can't let this consume you." The concern in his voice felt like ice in my veins, a bitter reminder of all the times he had sounded so sincere. Years of friendship, heaving under the weight of regret, creating fissures I could no longer ignore, but moving on, how could I when the betrayal still felt fresh like salt on a raw wound? "You're asking too much of me." My voice trembled slightly, but I was determined to stand my ground. I won't simply erase you from my mind or from my heart, not after everything. His eyes flickered with something, a shadow of what had once been between us, mingling sadness with guilt. I didn't want this, I never wanted to hurt you. Then why did you? The question hung between us like a menacing cloud, and I could nearly feel the answers swirling inside him, begging to be set free. It was almost unbearable. Because I was scared, okay, I was terrified of losing everything. The moment I made that choice, it felt like stepping off a cliff without a parachute. A cliff you pushed me off too, I retaliated, each word like a punch, and the hurt in my chest flared up again. And what do you plan to do, pretend it never happened? No, Mia, listen. His voice softened and his eyes bore into mine, searching, pleading. I am here now, we can still fix this, it's not too late. My heart hammered in my chest, torn between the fragments of my trust and the shards of anguish that lay between us. Fix this by pretending everything is fine. I crossed my arms tightly, reminding myself of the armor I had built around my heart. I don't have that luxury. It's not pretending, it's moving forward, he insisted, leaning closer as if my answer laid hidden within the depths of my gaze. We can find a way to make this work, Mia, please. There was a desperation in his voice, a flicker of hope that was almost palpable. My heart, still beating fast, began to soften just slightly, and in that moment of vulnerability, I saw the boy I once cherished, the one whose laughter had filled my nights with light. But painful memories clawed at the edges of my heart, reminding me that hope had brought me here to this bitter confrontation not long after the sweetest dreams had shattered. I don't need you to fix anything for me, I replied, my voice quieter now, softer but firm. I want you to understand the cost of your betrayal. The silence that followed was deafening, filled with the weight of unspoken truths and regret. It felt as if the air itself stilled, caught in the fragile web that we had woven together, only to have it unravel over time. And if I can never understand, he asked, his voice barely above a whisper, thick with emotion. Wouldn't that be a tragedy? I felt the heat of tears prick at my eyes, but I wouldn't let them spill. Not now, not here. Perhaps, I said, forcing the words through my clenched throat, but I can't carry the burden of your choices anymore. You remember what you did to me and to everyone else. The bar continued to hum around us, oblivious to the storm swirling at this dark corner. What if I told you I could help? He offered, just when I thought I had drawn the line firmly between us. Help, I repeated, my brow furrowing in disbelief. You tried to help yourself, Kai. That left me in ruins, so forgive me if I struggled to see the offering in your hand. No, Mia listened, he paused, taking a breath as he struggled to find the right words. I can make things right, not just for us but for everyone I hurt along the way. I want to fix this, for you. And why should I trust you? I shot back, the remnants of my hope flickering like a dying candle. What guarantees do I have that you will not just turn your back again? Because I am here, he said, sincerity and emotion threading his voice. Because I realize the weight of my mistakes now, for once I see it clearly, I want to make amends. The sincerity in his expression pricked at the remnants of my anger. I felt the walls I had built around my heart start to tremble. This is more than me, Kai, I insisted, desperate to reclaim some control. People were hurt, real people with hopes and dreams. You can't just wave a magic wand and fix it all. I know, he replied, and for a moment I felt the air between us shift. But if there is any chance at all to make this right, to fix what I've broken, would you even consider it? Consider what? Joining you in this mess? I met his gaze, searching for sincerity in his brown eyes, but all I found was hope. You don't think this can be fixed, do you? I have to believe it can, he admitted, the fight having left his tone. Because if I don't, then what's left for either of us? I swallowed hard, feeling the swelling tide of emotion claw at my throat. I wanted to reach out to untangle the wreckage of our shared past, but dread held me back like chains. I did not want to go through that pain of trust again, not when the stakes felt so impossibly steep. You can't simply ask me for absolution, I said, my voice low and steady. What happened cannot just disappear because you want it to. There was silence once again, the weight of the truth anchoring us both. I don't expect forgiveness. He looked down at the bar, tracing patterns with his finger. Just a chance. A chance? The word settled heavily between us, filled with the echoes of all our shared history, the good and the bad, both entwined in such a way that made it impossible to separate one from the other. A chance at what exactly? I probed, a mixture of caution and curiosity threading my voice. What is it that you want? I want us to confront our past, to take ownership of our mistakes, he said quietly. Together, I blinked at him, the idea feeling both terrifying and strangely compelling. Together, the word felt foreign, as if it had been banished from my vocabulary. You really think after everything that we can be anything like we were? I believe we can find a way, he insisted, locking eyes with me, his gaze steady, unwavering. But it's going to take time, effort from both of us. Something flickered within me, a spark of that old connection that I had thought long buried. Could we rebuild from the ashes, or was that just another dream? Letting go of the past is harder than you think, I warned, my voice trembling as the memories crashed over me like relentless waves. I can't promise you what happens next. All I can promise is that I will try, not just for you. I took a deep, grounding breath, feeling the tension of anger slowly dissolve into an uncertain hope. But for myself. His face brightened just a touch, a ray of light pushing through the clouds of what had been. That's all I'm asking for, he said softly. A chance to try? I nodded slowly, the weight of that agreement sinking in. All right, but we do this on my terms. The last remnants of anger faded, leaving a cautious truce in its wake. Though the scars ran deep, I found myself open to the possibility that maybe, just maybe, he could change. And if nothing else, I wanted to see it, to be there in the moment to witness this unfolding transformation, whether success or failure. The battle lines were still drawn, a fragile understanding flowering between us, roots of memories tangled deep in the soil of our past. I had never imagined this would be where we ended up, a shaky negotiation for a second chance amidst the wreckage. Yet here we were, two imperfect souls willing to navigate this treacherous territory together as the shadows stretched longer over Hillcrest Town. The setting sun cast an orange hue over the rooftops. I could feel the crisp autumn air wrapping itself around me, sending shivers down my spine. This was it, the moment I had been waiting for, the culmination of all my plans, my doubts, and the suffocating weight of betrayal. I stood across the street from the cafe where it all began, where I first learned the truth, and where I decided that no matter the cost, I would have my revenge. I replayed that day over and over in my mind, the chill in the air matching the coldness I had felt when I discovered the betrayal of trust. Each detail seemed more vivid, the buzzing of the door chime, the clatter of dishes, and the unmistakable laughter that burst from their table as if it were mocking me. I looked over my shoulder, ensuring no one was watching. My heart pounded in my chest like a war drum, each beat urging me onward. I had assembled everything I needed, studying meticulously, setting my traps with surgical precision. This wasn't just about them finding out, it was about making them feel every ounce of pain I had felt. They thought they could get away with tearing me apart, but they had no clue who they were dealing with. With shaky hands, I adjusted my scarf, tightening it around my neck. A futile attempt to block out the chill and the memories that came flooding back. In another life, I might have walked past this place without a second thought. Today, it was the stage for my reckoning. I stepped away from the sidewalk and crossed the street, my boots crunching softly on the fallen leaves, a soothing melody to my brewing storm. Each step drew me closer to discovering whether I could pull off what I had imagined for so long. The cafe's windows glowed a warm amber, light starting to spark to life as dusk fell. I peered through the glass, catching a glimpse of them seated at a corner table, his hand resting on the back of her neck, a taunting intimacy I once shared with him. My stomach twisted in knots, but I stood my ground. This was my moment. I took a deep breath and pushed the door open, the chime ringing loud and clear, reverberating through the air like a warning bell. Inside, the smell of espresso and cinnamon enveloped me, wrapping tightly around my senses. The barista shot me a smile, warm and inviting, as if he had no idea of the storm brewing behind my eyes. I walked towards the back, pretending to scan the variety of pastries behind the glass. My eyes bore into the duo at that table, watching as they shared the kind of laughter that somber evenings are meant for. I had fed him joy, and she was now reaping the harvest of my care. Can you believe it? She laughed, tilting her head, her hair cascading down around her shoulders like a dark waterfall. It was so easy, his response was just as mocking. I told you she wouldn't see it coming, the poor girl was always so naive. I ground my teeth, chaos raging in my chest. Naive, I muttered quietly, forcing a smile at the barista as he asked for my order. I ordered my usual but barely tasted it. Each sip was laced with bitterness. The sweet cream clashed with the sour ache creeping into my throat as I kept my eyes locked on them. Did you send the texts? She leaned in close, conspiratorial, as if no one else could hear her. Of course, he said, a smug smile painting his face. Just wait until she finds out. My nails dug into my palms, and I suppressed the urge to leap across the room and confront them. Finds out, what do they mean? I thought, replaying their words over and over. I grabbed my phone, my heart racing. I had set everything in motion with just one letter. That letter would be my artillery, the weapon of truth. I had placed it carefully in the envelope, made sure to send it anonymously. They would be receiving it, devastating wonder washing over them like a tidal wave crashing down. Let's not get overconfident, she cautioned lightly, but her voice dripped with excitement. What if she doesn't react the way we expect? Oh, she will, he answered, that arrogance igniting a flame inside me. Her entire world is about to collapse. She will unravel, and when she does, it will be glorious. With that, the flame inside me transformed into a raging fire. I had spent the last several months living with anger, allowing it to simmer and build until I could no longer feel any warmth in my heart, only a relentless desire for justice. Justice could be ugly, and I had to remind myself that even though the path I was on felt treacherous, it was the only route left to me. Taking one last sip of my now lukewarm coffee, I steadied myself. Gathering my courage, I walked towards their table, every click of my boots echoing with purpose. As I approached, I forced a smile onto my lips, a mask to shield the turmoil inside. Mind if I join? My voice was steady, betraying none of the tumult within. They both looked up in surprise, his jaw tightening, her eyes widening with unsettling recognition. The laughter drained from around them like water slipping down a drain moments before a storm. What are you doing here? He questioned, his fake confidence wilting slightly. Oh, I didn't plan to intrude. I gestured toward the empty chair across from them, my eyes narrowing just enough to speak volumes. I saw you both enjoying yourselves and figured I should see for myself how the party was going. Actually, we were just about to leave, she said quickly, her voice shaky like the fragile quiet before thunder. Oh, please, I leaned forward, feigning casualness. I would love to have a moment with you both. I've missed our little talks. I could hear the layers of sarcasm drenched in my words, and it fueled me. There was an awful silence, the air thick with unspoken truths. I could almost hear the cogs turning in their heads, weighing their options. What's wrong? Nervous? I grinned, delighting in the sudden change in their demeanor. He shifted uncomfortably, avoiding my gaze. We don't have anything to say. I tilted my head, a feigned innocence dancing in my eyes. Oh, I think you have quite a lot to say. I reached into my pocket and pulled out my phone, the weight of it heavy in my palm. Like when you planned all of this, did you really think I would just sit here oblivious while you both plotted behind my back? Instead of answering, she looked to him as if he were her shield. You're being dramatic. Dramatic? Oh no, sweetie, this is a reality check. I leaned in closer, enjoying how their expressions crumbled under the weight of my certainty. And it's time for you both to face the consequences of your actions. Just then, the barista brought over my pastry, the sweet aroma cutting through the tension that had become a tangible force between us. I thanked him and turned my gaze back to them, noticing how they still clung to delusion, trying desperately to maintain some semblance of control. You think this is funny? I continued, my voice lowering, thick with menace. You think you can toy with people's lives and walk away unscathed? For the first time, he appeared rattled, shifting in his seat. You don't know what you're talking about. Oh, but I do, I replied coolly, dropping my facade, letting the weight of my words crash into them. I know everything, I have the proof, and soon enough everyone will know. Your little games, your betrayals will be the talk of this town, and when they find out exactly how low you both sank, I wonder how much laughter you will be sharing then. She attempted to hold her composure, but I could see the cracks forming, the doubts creeping into her eyes. You think you can intimidate us? She scoffed, but it lacked conviction. No, I don't need to intimidate you, I just need to awaken your sense of reality. I leaned back in my chair, my fingers drumming softly on the table, visualizing the collapse that was about to unfold. When that letter arrives at your doorstep, you will realize the depth of your recklessness. There will be no place to hide. His arrogance faltered, and I seized the opening, pressing forwards with the satisfaction that I was winning this war of wills. It must be terrifying knowing that you cannot control everything in your life. The very foundation of your so-called happiness is about to come crashing down around you. He blinked, fury and fear mixing behind his eyes. You wouldn't dare, you don't have the guts. How little you know me, I responded softly, leaning closer, my voice laced with a cold calm. I've waited too long to be a victim, and now with every fiber of my being, I am here to reclaim my narrative. I am ready to rewrite this story. And just like that, there was a shift in the air, a brewing storm that hinted at change. Her expression hardened, the mask of arrogance slipping, revealing vulnerability. Why can't you just move on? She asked, the sheen of desperation overcoming her bravado. We've all made mistakes. True, I said, but you all made mistakes at my expense. Mistakes that I will no longer bear quietly. You don't get to take from me and then act as if nothing happened. Every word dripped with my pent-up ache, each syllable birthed from the depths of betrayal. Turning to him, I added, you were supposed to be my friend, you were supposed to understand what loyalty meant, and yet you threw it away like it was nothing. I didn't mean to hurt you, he burst out, real regret seeping into his voice for the first time, even as anger simmered beneath. I didn't think it would come to this. Oh, but it has. I leaned back, relishing the tumult in their faces, the chaos of betrayal reflected in their eyes. And now you will have to face the fallout. Your acts have consequences, and you will feel every last one. Just remember you chose this path. I leaned in, my voice dropping to a conspiratorial whisper, and I will be waiting in the wings. The moment hung heavy between us, and I felt a sense of overwhelming satisfaction surge through me. They had thought they could dismiss my pain, but now the tables turned. I could feel their shoddy little world beginning to collapse, their empire of lies and deceit crumbling under the weight of their choices. As I turned to leave, I could almost taste the bittersweet elation that would follow their inevitable downfall. Once outside, I inhaled the cool evening air, a sharp contrast to the charged atmosphere of betrayal that lingered behind me in that cafe. They would, in due time, understand what it meant to be a target of their own creation. The tiniest branch of hope ignited within me, breathing warmth back into my frigid heart. I had not simply planned my revenge, I had set a stage, and they would be the unwilling actors. As I walked down the street, every step a reminder of my resolve, I whispered to myself, this is not the end, it is only the beginning. I could almost hear the whispers of an unfolding story, the pages filled with the ink of justice waiting to be written. In the end, it was not just revenge I sought, it was peace and the return of my shattered spirit. And with every passing moment in Hillcrest Town, I could taste the freedom that lay just beyond the horizon.